Today on Public Eye News, U.S. employers' continuous hiring could result in problems with rate hikes, and schools clash with parents over bans on student cell phones.
Later, Michael Cudahy will have your weather and your sports updates. Hello, I'm Beck Burley.
And I'm Susanna Gwynn, and this is Public Eye News. Starting off in Washington, the jobs report released earlier today revealed more than 260,000 positions were filled in the month of October. Although hiring numbers were strong, it is still less than the 315,000 positions filled in September. The unemployment rate rose from 3.5% to 3.7%. This jobs report comes as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates at the fastest pace since 1980 to try to reduce inflation from the near 40-year high. In a promising sign, the majority of the net hiring was seen in industries still struggling to recover from the sharp employment losses during the pandemic, such as healthcare, education, and the restaurant and hotel industry. The jobs report released this morning is the last major economic report before the midterm elections, where chronic inflation is a major concern among voters. And now onto the topic of cell phones in the classroom. Educators say they are a distraction that keeps children from learning, while some parents argue that by banning cell phones in the classroom, direct lines of communication are severed and personal safety may be jeopardized in the event of a school shooting. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, bans of cell phones were in place in 76% of schools across the country, according to the National Center for Education Statistics. Since schools have reopened, struggles with student mental health and student behavior have given some schools even more of a reason to control access to these devices. However, some parents who had constant access to their child during the remote learning of the pandemic argue that by taking away cell phones, this is another way to keep them out of their child's education. Educators argue that cutting down cell phone access will decrease screen time and increase engagement and academic progress lost during the COVID pandemic.
And Michigan's
Supreme Court approves new poll challenger guidance. This mandate would not allow the use of cell phones or other electronic devices at absentee vote counting boards. Lawsuits that involve the Michigan GOP and National Republican Committee took issue with new credentials required by the Secretary of State, and that poll challengers would have to communicate with a challenger liaison instead of election officials. Supreme Court Justice David Viviano said in a statement on Thursday, "We live in a political age where one side claims our democracy is at stake because the other is questioning the integrity of our elections, an age-old and seemingly bipartisan tradition." Early season elk hunters find success, with 98 state hunters harvesting a total of 24 bull elk and 52 antlerless elk. The season began in late August and spanned 12 days throughout September and into early October. Hunters had mild weather during the whole season, with a few warm days with cooler nights. More specifically, of the 100 hunters issued elk licenses for this hunt period, 76% of antlerless hunters and 87% of any elk hunters were successful in their pursuits. The early season is designed to remove elk living outside of the designated elk management area, which is primarily the Pigeon River Country State Forest. The second hunt period will begin December 10th for 160 hunters. And Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving has apologized to the Jewish community for a now deleted tweet he sent a week ago, containing a link to a documentary criticized as anti-Semitic. As the nation continues to grapple with a series of high-profile incidents of anti-Semitism, synagogues in at least one state are on high alert after a warning from law enforcement. CBS' Astrid Martinez is outside a synagogue in North Bergen, New Jersey, with the latest.
Police in New Jersey are keeping a closer eye on Jewish houses of worship. This after an FBI warning of a broad and credible threat to synagogues throughout the state.
Stay alert, be vigilant, and never hesitate calling law enforcement if there's something that is concerning to you. We need people to see something. If they see something, to say something.
Law enforcement officials say an online posting with anti-Semitic comments is what prompted the FBI's alert.
There's just been a rise in hate, a rise in extreme rhetoric that is continuing to become normalized. What we need to do is to continue to push it back.
The FBI's warning comes amid a series of recent high-profile anti-Semitic incidents, primarily surrounding controversial posts by celebrities on social media.
Brooklyn Nets basketball star Kyrie Irving has been suspended without pay by his team for at least 5 games after tweeting a link to a film that denies the Holocaust and falsely blames Jews for slavery. Initially, Irving refused to issue an apology.
I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
Irving did yesterday apologize, saying he now recognizes the, quote, negative impact of my post towards the Jewish community. Irving's post followed a series of anti-Semitic comments hip-hop artist and designer Kanye West made on social media over the past few weeks. West has since lost several business partnerships, most notably with Adidas, which reportedly cost him as much as $2 billion. Astrid Martinez, CBS News, New Jersey.
After this break, we'll be back with your weather and sports update. Stay tuned.
She's the White House correspondent for the PBS NewsHour.
It has been a historic and traumatic week in Washington, D.C.
Former reporter for the New York Times, political analyst for NBC, and multimedia journalist at USA Today.
Join me this week and every week for a critical look at this week's top news stories.
Yamiche Alcindor, the new moderator of Washington Week.
Tonight at 8 on WNMU TV.
Welcome back to Public Eye News. I'm Michael Cudahy here with your weather report. Looking around the NMU campus, it's pretty wet. We just had some rain come through, but let's look around the UP real quick. Looking around, you see on the eastern half, we got Sault Ste. Marie at 58, Manistee at 46, Escanaba, as you can see, at 60, Menominee down there at 57. It's going to be cloudy around almost all the UP. You have some rain in Marquette and Menominee. Iron Mountain at 50, Ironwood at 40, and Houghton at 41. Coming back here to Marquette with our current conditions, we're going to have some clouds, some rain. Temperatures, like I said, 46 degrees at the moment. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour, with our barometric pressure at 29.79 and rising. Looking at tonight, we have rain on the schedule, a low of 37 and winds coming from the north at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Now looking at tomorrow, we got more rain coming. It's going to keep coming all weekend long. High of 55, low of 35, winds out of the northeast at 15 to 20 miles an hour. Now let's look ahead. We got weather, we got Sunday, high of 55, low of 36. Should be some clouds and suns mixed in, but should have some powerful winds. Monday, high of 49, low of 30. It's going to be cold but sunny. Tuesday, Election Day, high of 50, low of 38. Clouds should be coming out behind the suns, thankfully, though. So we should have a nice day for elections. Susanna, back to you.
Thank you so much for that weather update, Michael. Shifting west to San Diego, on Friday, President Biden is set to tour a Southern California communications company that will benefit from his push to increase American semiconductor manufacturing. The company, called Viasat, which provides high-speed satellite coverage, is headquartered in Carlsbad, California. Viasat will benefit from a portion of the CHIPS and Science Act, a more than $280 billion legislative package. Supply disruptions and a shortage of domestic chip manufacturing during COVID-19 curbed Viasat's ability to provide services to its industrial customers and the U.S. military. President Biden intends to highlight how the CHIPS Act will help companies similar to Viasat reduce their reliance on overseas manufacturers for chips and similar products. And now traveling across the globe to the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. On Friday, Iran marked the 1979 takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. The events today occurred even as protests have broken out nationwide after the death of Masha Amani, a 22-year-old woman arrested by the morality police in September for wearing her hijab incorrectly. Iranian state-run television aired live feeds of commemoration around the country, while some crowds in Tehran were filled with women waving the Islamic Republic's flag in protest. Iranian President Abraham Raisi spoke to a crowd gathered in front of the former U.S. Embassy building and harshly criticized those who protested the theocracy, telling protesters that they are stepping in the direction of the enemies of the Islamic Revolution. According to a human rights activist group in Iran, since the protests began in late September, at least 300 protesters have been killed, with more than 14,000 being injured. And tensions are escalating on the Korean peninsula. North Korea tested dozens of missiles this week, including ICBMs, which can reach the United States. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that any nuclear attack on the U.S. or allies would end the North's regime. All of this is causing some in the South to prepare for the worst, as CBS's Ian Lee reports.
While many people plant a garden in their backyards, Lee Tae-gu built a bomb shelter. The South Korean professor of architecture worries someday the North's nuclear weapons could rain down on his country. There's material that can block heat and steel rods inside that reinforce the concrete against missile or bomb blasts, he says. It's not luxurious. A manual lever is needed to circulate fresh air. But Lee says his bunker can shelter 12 people for up to a month. It even has an escape hatch. Public shelters are far, and with the North just 60 miles away, he's concerned about biological or nuclear strikes. More than 17,000 bomb shelters dot South Korea, with more than 3,000 in the capital, Seoul alone. But many people in the countryside would struggle to get to one in time. Lee says he built the shelter as an example to others, adding that Koreans have easily forgotten about war and are not prepared. South Korean and American officials fear Pyongyang is preparing for another nuclear test. While in the past 24 hours, North Korean warplanes flew nearly 200 flights. The South responded by scrambling its own aircraft. This comes as South Korea and the U.S. conduct their largest ever air exercise, a move the North calls a dangerous and awful mistake. Ian Lee, CBS News.
Stay tuned. After this short break, we'll be back with your sports update.
Experience counts, especially when it comes to Michigan politics. Every week around the OTR table, seasoned political journalists bring their insider's perspective to what's happening on the campaign trail and in state government. No boisterous shouting, no political slant, just straight-up coverage to help you make smart political decisions. Put our 301 years of state capitol reporting experience to work for you. Now in our 5th decade, Off the Record still getting the inside out.
Tonight at 8:30.
When Mitchell Miller was in 8th grade, he was charged with assault and a violation of the Ohio Safe School Act. Miller and a classmate confessed to bullying Isaiah Mayer Crothers, a classmate with a learning disability. Miller was drafted in 2020 by the Arizona Coyotes in the 4th round with the Coyotes' top pick. He would later be released by the Coyotes a few months after the draft once knowledge of this event grew. Miller today signed with the Boston Bruins. Miller apologized to all at the time to all 31 NHL teams before the 2020 NHL draft to avoid tumble-down draft boards. He's yet to apologize to Isaiah. And in other NHL news, the Detroit Red Wings honored the 1997 Stanley Cup alumni last night before their game against the Washington Capitals, and the celebration kept going on after the game. The Red Wings won 3-1 last night with the Caps captain Alexander Ovechkin scoring the first goal of the game, but it was then young star Lucas Raymond who tied the game for the Red Wings. Savvy free agent signing Andrew Kopp scored the winner, and Red Wings captain and just like Kopp, a Michigan native, Dylan Larkin got the insurance marker for the Wings. Ville Husso played in net for the Wings last night and is 4-1-1 on the season with a 2.17 goals against average and a 93.4 save percentage. Both top 10 stats in the NHL. And the NMU men's hockey team is traveling to the Sioux to kick off the start of the Capo Cup season. The team that wins the most games in the 4 games that Lake State and Northern will play this year takes the cup, with Lake State currently having it in their possession. The Wildcats have played 10 games on the year and are an even 5-5, whereas LSSU currently has a 1-win, 4-loss, and a tie as their record. LSSU has Louis Boudon leading the team in scoring with some help from Brandon Persili, but with little else. It should be a great game this weekend, and that is unfortunately all the time we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Public Eye News. I'm Michael Cudahy.
I'm Beck Burley.
Have a great weekend.
The preceding program was produced by WNMU-TV, Northern Michigan University Public Television, in studios located in Elizabeth and Edgar Hardin Hall.